There, that says good.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Welcome to the monthly breakfast co-sponsored by the Association for Conflict Resolution of Greater New York and the City University of New York Dispute Resolution Center at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. I'm Maria Volpe. I'm a professor at John Jay, where I also run the dispute resolution program. We started these breakfasts after 9/11, and today is our 255th monthly breakfast. Until March of 2020, we met in person at John Jay College. Since April 2020, we've been meeting online. For the foreseeable future, we will still be holding these sessions online. I know we get asked every month whether we'll be continuing online or not, but so far it looks like we are scheduled to be online for the foreseeable future. Each month, these breakfasts are made possible by a wonderful team that I work with, including Julie Denny, Matthew Latimer, Nikki Borofsky, and Emily Skinner. And this morning, we are so delighted to have with us a wonderful colleague from Washington, Vikram Kapoor. But before we introduce Vic, I'm going to turn it over for a minute to Emily Skinner, who is the president-elect of ACR-GNY, who will make a few announcements, and then she will turn it over to Julie, who will officially introduce Vic. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And Emily, on to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Maria. And I'm super excited about this breakfast this morning. I wanted to jump on really quick and invite everybody. Right now, the Association for Conflict Resolution Greater New York is having our open nominations, call for nominations for our board of directors. And I want to invite you to participate and join our group. We're a really fun group that is committed to continuing the growth of this community, our ADR community here in the greater New York area. And there's lots of opportunities for leadership. I really encourage you to reach out to me. You can direct message me. I'll also share some of the links in the chat to discuss more if you have any questions or any thoughts. And it's a great way to continue to be a part of this community outside of the breakfast as well.
Thank you, Emily. And now, Julie, on to you so that we can hear from our speaker.
Right. This is all leading toward Vic, who's on screen right now. Vic Kapoor is a certified coach, trainer, mediator, and facilitator with a lot of experience in multicultural communication, intergenerational collaboration, and psychological safety on teams. He's a professional certified coach recognized by the International Coach Federation, and he has a client list that has included people at the UN, US Special Forces, Silicon Valley's household brands, and a range of top advisory, legal, and financial services companies around the world. Vic, in his work, weaves together cutting-edge science and practical wisdom to empower those who seek support around goal setting, leading with values, collaborating in the workplace, bouncing back from setbacks, and galvanizing teams behind a common purpose. He has prior conflict resolution experience at the UN and within the US federal government, and he was once a leader with the ABA section of dispute resolution and Mediators Beyond Borders. He's skilled in a number of diagnostic tools. I'm sure some of that will be integrated into his talk today. And he's also the author of First Serve Yourself, an Amazon #1 best-selling book on self-coaching that won a Living Now medal. He has a law degree from Georgetown University and advanced training in global mental health from Harvard Medical School. Some of that surfaced in our discussion before the beginning of this session. Vic, welcome. We're delighted to have you here. Take it away.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure, and I'm so sorry you had to say all of that. I appreciate it very much. We're excited to talk to you all about self-coaching, and just so you have a sense of it, a similar talk I kind of delivered for the World Economic Forum's Global Shapers, various universities. I was actually at the ICF New England chapter, it's the International Coach Federation chapter, so I was testing it out with some of these seasoned coaches. And the reason I thought the book I wrote was a good book is because half the sort of top coaches I spoke to said it was a great idea that you can coach yourself. And the other half said, you're full of it. There's no way you can coach yourself. And so that scandal is what spawned all of this. And so I want to challenge you to be thinking too, are you buying what I'm selling? In other words, do you think you can coach yourself? I think you can. And so let's dive into it and see what that means really. And just a little bit more flavor. So I did work with 80 coaches in 40 countries while I was at the UN. But thank you so much for covering my bio. It's my pleasure to be here with you all. And in terms of starting this off, I thought it would be helpful, especially in light of the sort of tough conversation we were having even before this. It might be nice to just get centered for a moment. And to do that, I will offer two different options. For some of you, the first option will be better, and for others, it just will be painful. So you might as well try the other option. Okay, so the mindful breathing option is to just plant your feet, close your eyes, maybe have a soft gaze if you don't want to close your eyes, and just notice the breathing in and out of your nose. You're going to try to create this triangle at the upper lip and nose, and all you're doing is noticing the breath going in and out of your nose. This is Anapana meditation. It's usually the first step in any more serious meditative practice from the school of meditation I come from. Okay, so just breathing in and out of your nose. Nowhere else to be, nothing else to do. Now, if you don't want to do that, you can instead focus on the future. You can imagine the positive future, imagine the day going really well. What are you doing today? What are you eating today? Just to kind of daydream about your day and how great it's going to be today. So you have those two choices. And we'll just take a couple minutes. And if you're breathing, just continue breathing through your nose. There's a lot of research about nostril breathing. So if you're stuffy, you can use your mouth, but if you're able to use your nose, it's going to be a lot better. And if you're daydreaming, just continue daydreaming for a little while. Now, if you get distracted, don't worry about it. Just come right back to what you were doing before. Maybe the breathing or the daydreaming. Just noticing what you're noticing. And believe it or not, that was only about 2 minutes. But we're going to take now a breath in through your nose and just exhale through your mouth a little bit longer than you inhaled. And let's do one more of those. Inhaling through your nose And just exhaling longer than you inhaled, just in a pronounced kind of way. It doesn't have to be assertive, but just breathing out. That is vagus nerve activation. There's research that shows that by doing that last piece, the breathing out longer than you breathe in, you're actually going to activate your parasympathetic nervous system and become calmer as a result. And whenever you're ready, you can come back. You can loosen up a little bit, open your eyes. But just to get us centered, right? Sometimes I'll often ask people, if you're running late to a meeting, can you be a little bit more late? Is it all right if you're just 1 more minute late? Because chances are you're going to come in much more creative, much more resourceful and whole if you've got that second to reset right there, right? Now, the reason I added the daydreaming, and I could have been more specific about that, but if there's any feeling, if you've got if you're feeling like you might be a little distracted today, or if there's any neurodiversity, sometimes the mindfulness, just the breathing, will create some sense of anxiety or trigger some kind of discomfort. And so I always want to give that second option as well. Some people come back to me and say the mindfulness just did not work for me. Well, usually a creative visualization, an imagination, a daydreaming will help in that situation. Okay. Let me just check the chat here. Okay, wonderful. All right, thanks for letting people know what we're doing here. Okay, so this is probably not something foreign to any of you, but I'm going to ask you to think of a conflict. Think of a conflict you're in right now. What is the conflict you're in? A challenge that you're facing? And let's talk about mindset for a minute. I wanted to give you some different paradigms around mindset. You probably heard of many of these, some of them maybe not, but I wanted to just lump them together here. And feel free, if you have and you want to talk more about it, if you use this in your practice and you want to come off mute and share about it, I'm all about it. I've built in plenty of time into the PowerPoint, into the presentation itself for discussion, interaction, questions, that kind of thing. So whatever you like to do is great. Okay, so let me just spell out these mindsets, and then I'll invite you to think about them some more. So Arbinger Institute talks about the outward mindset and the inward mindset. The inward mindset is when I treat people like objects. I treat them like transactions. They're needing to do something for me. That's the inward mindset. It's all about me. The outward mindset is about them. It's about service. It's about treating people like people. Okay, there's an example. There was a SWAT team that was doing very poorly. It would bust in there, arrest the people, but kind of wreak havoc, destroy the building, hurt the victims, and things like that. And they turned it around by switching to an outward mindset. And what it looked like was one person entered, and their job was just management of everybody else. So they would check on the dog, and they would check on the child and all that stuff, and they would warm the baby bottle while everyone else was nabbing the perpetrator rather. So that was the outward mindset for the SWAT team, totally changed their results. And there's lots of other examples I can give you about this, but are we being inward? Are we focused on ourselves and treating people like transactions? Or are we being outward? Are we treating them like people, and are we putting them first? Okay, that's one question, one set of questions. Then there's scarcity and abundance. Okay, scarcity means just that. There's not enough. We don't have enough. If I get fired, I'll never get a job, right? That's also a little bit of a fixed mindset, but there just isn't much to go around. So we must fight for resources, right? We see this a lot in our work, I imagine. Switching that to a sufficiency or an abundance mindset would mean that there is enough, or there's more than enough. Something else will come around if needed, that kind of thing. Imposter syndrome is a form of scarcity because you don't think you're good enough. Okay, no judgment there. I mean, I was interviewing David Petraeus, the head of the CIA, for a while, and he also had imposter syndrome. So you don't have to feel like you're out of place there if that's something you're thinking about. So a fixed mindset, as Carol Dweck talks about, if you've read her book Mindset, fixed mindset is about, I cannot grow in this area. It's going to be very hard for me to do anything. My skills are fixed. I can't learn. A growth mindset is, of course, the opposite. I can always grow and change. I'm always picking up new things, etc. The victim mindset is one where things are happening to me. I have no choice in the matter. If you've listened to that TED Talk with Tony Robbins, Why We Do What We Do, Al Gore's in the front row, and he's asking people about what are those resources that limit you in life. And Al Gore says, the Supreme Court limited me. And he says, well, that's true, but not true, right? Because at the end of the day, we argue about resources, but the issue is usually one of resourcefulness. And so that's the player mindset that things are not happening to me, they're happening through me or with me. And I have some part to play in this, right? Often as a mediator and as an ombuds, I spend a fair amount of time in this area, helping people think through, how can we get to more of a player mindset? By the way, the views I express here are my own and not those of the government. I should probably have disclaimed that earlier. And I'm also not a psychologist or therapist or other helping professional. So this is all just all in good fun. Please take it as such. Okay. So what mindset stands out to you when you're thinking of the conflict or challenge that you might be facing right now? Do you have an inward or an outward mindset? Is it scarcity or abundance, fixed, or is it growth, or is it victim or player? What mindset stands out to you? And put it in the chat if you don't mind. I'd love to see what some people think about what mindsets are dominating some of these conflicts. Oop, sorry. Let me go back to that. Okay, some scarcity, some fixed, some victim. Yeah. Yeah, and as you think about this, it's, what mindset do I want? What's the helpful mindset? I don't want to ask a leading question, but I assume a lot of you are saying scarcity or inward or victim, fixed, maybe see a better way here, right? Maybe there's another option here, possibly. So how do we get to that, right? And before we do that, you may also, it's probably worth asking, and I often do this in my facilitations too, is where do you think that mindset's coming from? If we go back to this intergenerational trauma, the research around learned helplessness, this idea of values misalignment, right? There's so many reasons, context and belief system. Like, where did the mindset come from? Is it a pattern you're replaying, or is it new because of something? So that's what I would be looking for. Sorry about the gulp there. All right. So, and what mindset do you actually want? Where do you want to go? So I imagine many of you don't want this fixed or inward or scarcity to be dominating the conversation, right? So if we want to switch our mindset, here is the first tool of self-coaching I want to give you before I actually tell you what self-coaching is. I'm working backwards here. Okay, this is called the brain flip. The brain flip came from Hira Ali. She's a coach based in Pakistan, somebody I interviewed for my book. A lot of people are very generous with their go-to tools. I had a number of tools in mind. I'd used them all over the world already. So I hunted for people who had created those tools and the research around them. And in the course of doing that, learned about other people and adopted new tools as well. So I'm giving you some of the very best ones that I can think of for dispute resolvers. Yeah. And one of them here is called the brain flip. So if you've got parties who are in an unhelpful mindset, or if you're in an unhelpful mindset, right, the first step is to notice it. If you can label it, oh, I'm in scarcity. I want to be liked by this party, and they're gonna, whatever it is, they don't like me right now. They may walk out, and then I feel scarce, right? If you can notice that, affect labeling will reduce amygdala response. I'll get back to that, but just remember that. Labeling the thing will reduce the response, okay? Then, if you can count backwards, 3, 2, 1, flip, right? If you can say 3, 2, 1, flip in your mind, and then flip to a helpful mindset. I want to be in abundance. I've always been a good mediator. I'm going to be a good mediator. Plenty of clients are coming through the door. This client's going to like me too. They're just having a rough spot right now. We're going to settle this case the way they need to, or work through with parties. Whatever that narrative is, whatever you need, right? You are enough. Or if it's scarcity, or if it's inward, gosh, I'm being really focused on myself right now. Inward mindset, 3, 2, 1, flip. My wife is 9 months pregnant. She needs something. I need to change my attitude on this. I've got to remember that it's about other people right now. It's about service. right? So you start to have a dialogue with yourself. Okay. So I'll invite you to try this right now. You had a conflict or challenge you were thinking about. You had a certain mindset that was dominating. If you want to keep that, great. But if you want to flip it, you're welcome to try it. And you might think, okay, what do I want to flip it to? And what would be the language that would help to show that I'm flipping it to that? Okay. And then go ahead and try it. We'll give you a minute here. Think of the unhelpful mindset. Say, oh, I'm in scarcity. 3, 2, 1, flip. I want to be in abundance. How'd that go? Decent? It may not come right away. It may also depend on how multitasking you are right now. Let's be honest. But it's possible that, you'll get, oh, I see a hand. Is there a hand? No, that was just a dove. Nice background though, Richard. I like that. Very good. Okay. So yeah, I'd love to hear any reactions to that if you want to come off mute or not, it's okay. But I always like to hear. Do all these resolve into a sense of agency or capacity to do something? It's a good question. I don't know that the abundance one automatically would. The outward one also, it might just be about thought. Can I believe in the greater humanity of things? Growth, I mean, for me, I was thinking about swimming because I'm like, I can't swim. I'm not very good at swimming, but I need to learn how to swim. My wife loves floating in the ocean. So does it lead to something? Usually, but it may just be, sorry, the belief at least can start to have you think to yourself differently. All right, so other thoughts here. I'm in abundance in some areas, scarcity in some. That's very natural. That's very natural to have that. And to notice it, right? Well, how does it feel in your body when you have scarcity? How does it feel when you have abundance? Is the abundance well-founded? Is the scarcity founded? There's a great tool called fear setting, which I don't mention today generally, but it's a great TED Talk and worksheet that you can look at if you feel like you have scarcity. And it's a work in progress to create more of an abundance mindset. You certainly can, and we'll talk about micro affirmations at the very end. Maybe some of you are familiar with Mary Rowe's work on micro affirmations. That's a great way of starting to build more of an abundance mindset. I'm also going to talk to you about a journal and a voice recorder and a mirror. All of them are going to help you build more of an abundance mindset if you want to use them for that purpose. Meditation can help with that. Sometimes modeling good behavior. I actually had a boss early in my career. Maybe some of you know her, Cindy Mazer. She was the head of FEMA's ADR division. She just epitomized the abundance mindset. Always found a way to show that, right? That there is enough for everybody. And I think as you see more of that in your life, you can start to unpack that for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. Anybody want to come off mute and say anything?
Yeah, I can say what I wrote, but I went from inward to outward, and there's no question but that I begin to understand better understand the other's point of view, sympathize with it. My body relaxes a little. Yeah, it's good. That flip.
You also feel less judged because you're not judging, right? And it's like it becomes a space of just compassion and self-compassion. So there can be a lot there in the outward mindset and really caring for others. Now, of course, the flip side of that is if you're always out there being a servant leader, always caring for others, you're going to get run over every now and then, right? There's going to be some competitor, if you know the Kilman conflict styles. There'll be competition, of course. So then we've got to get to collaboration and compromise. We've got to create some leverage, and we've got to have those conversations and things like that. But our natural tendency is to come from a place of inward, and you see this a lot in leadership. There's a great book called Leadership and Self-Deception, which kind of unpacks this concept in great detail, right? Is like, do you really think you're as good of a leader as, you're not being perceived as such, perhaps, as you think you are. And so looking at that some more. In any event, so the brain flip is something you can try with colleagues, with family, with yourselves, with parties. And, like anything I'm sharing with you, it's circumstantial. It's one additional tool. I wouldn't lead with it because someone might be very turned off by the fact that you're not honoring, where they're starting from. But if they start to notice that they're in an unhelpful thought pattern and it's getting in the way, it's sabotaging them, then this is a way to kind of start to move away from that. Okay. I'm going to give you another tool in a few minutes that has very much to do with your practice as a conflict resolver. And it's going to draw on some of the same concepts. It's about reducing and being triggered and that kind of thing. Okay. But I wanted to just share. So that's one example of self-coaching. And this is what I mean by self-coaching, really. It's self-directed. You drive the train, you pick the pace, right? You can choose when you do this brain flip. It's totally at your leisure. And it's going to pull on research. So there's coaching psychology, behavioral science, nonviolent communication. Like, I mean, I pull from all kinds of things, right? It's based on humble inquiry, humble self-inquiry. So if you know Edgar Schein's work on humble inquiry, it's really about humble self-inquiry, and tie that with Kristen Neff's work on self-compassion. It's about, really listening with self-compassion. So you're asking these humble questions of yourself, and then you're listening with some great self-compassion. And as a result, you're able to hear some new things, and you can ask yourself better questions and hear more insights. And so it's this iterative process that you're probably already doing, but there's a little more structure that you can play with if you want. And there's research that backs up that structure. And so when I was on this quest to talk to some of the best coaches in the world, because I was curious what they were doing, and by the way, many of them told me about their illustrious clients, like the heads of the World Bank and the Rockefeller Foundation and the CEO of Boeing and Ford. And, these people are all coaching themselves. They're all sitting around in circles asking these questions of themselves and of each other. So why not the rest of us, And so that's what really drew me to kind of build on this. And then I was able to find more research on the journal and on mirrors and the voice recorder, and to build a little bit of a system so people can use if they want to. Okay. And then just so you know, when I think of self-coaching, I don't really mean it's only by yourself. I do mean, though, that you're driving the train. You don't have a mentor in that regard. I mean, you might augment it with coaches and mentors. The self-coaching piece itself, it's not like talking to a friend, but you may use the gig economy or technology to have an interface of some kind. I'll describe to you later how I use a personal assistant in a one-way dialogue, if you will, to help me meet some of my goals. So it's not just only by yourself. You can use technology and the gig economy, but I find that this will augment any other coaching relationship that you have. And why did we even, get here? It's because coaching is a huge competitive advantage, just huge. 97% of Fortune 500 CEOs have a coach, and they're not paying, small bucks for those coaches. Some charge $1 million a year. Why are they paying that kind of money for a coach? Because there's a huge competitive advantage. And if you don't really know a lot about coaching yet, or if you don't have a coach or don't want a coach, well, you can do some self-coaching. And the self-coaching inherently is going to allow you to be a better coach. Because as you learn more about self-coaching and the value of coaching yourself, you can then turn around and coach others in a more humble, kind of curious, less advisory kind of way. The challenge is, as mediators and facilitators, right, sometimes we own the process, right? And if we're an evaluative mediator, we're going to sometimes give a fair amount of insight to people about the case. But if you're thinking about coaching, sort of a purist coach is going to be extremely facilitative, right? They're going to ask questions. They're going to be very open. They're not going to be leading and that kind of thing. And so engaging with yourself in that way can be very productive and powerful, especially with things that you've been grappling with for a long time. It's a different way of conversing with yourself. And then it's contagious. It really is. As you become a better coach, you coach other people more effectively. And Gallup, which is a big polling company, they do a lot of work on well-being and resilience, engagement. They did a big study. They wrote a book called It's the Manager. They looked at managers all over the world. They decided that corporations are going to be made or broken on the value of the middle manager. The middle manager is going to be good or bad based on how good of a coach they are. The better the coach, the better the manager. Problem is, in my work, though, I run into a lot of middle managers who have no idea what coaching is, you know. And so by coaching yourself or by teaching your parties to coach themselves, you're helping them just, it's more upstream. Otherwise, we end up in the conflict over and over and over again if people are doing the same behaviors. So that's part of why the self-coaching stuff came together. All right, so I wanted to give you one more tool here. That's just the kind of the backdrop for you all. This is called the From the Basement to the Balcony. You would maybe be familiar with some of these concepts. Lenny Marcus, he's a professor out of Harvard. He works on swarm leadership, which is this idea if we don't have a specific leader, think of FEMA, interagency coordination, Boston Marathon bombing, 9/11, this kind of stuff. There was no clear person in charge. So in a swarm leadership environment, we have to get really good with our psychological safety and with getting out of the basement. If I'm in the basement, that means I'm triggered, I'm fired up, I'm shut down, I'm in fight, flight, amygdala hijack, right? Oftentimes I'm in freeze, right? So we want to think about going from the basement to the balcony. The balcony is Bill Urey's concept, right, from Harvard as well. We want to go to the balcony. We want to look down from above, whether it's proverbial or metaphorical, however you want to look at it, but we want to create distancing. And there's more research now on third-party distancing, distance self-talk. If it can be happening to Vic over there, me, Vic, over here, my body's not going to feel it as much if it seems like it's happening to somebody over there. So all of this ties together to create this basement to the balcony concept. It helps us de-escalate tension, to calm our amygdala, to get out of freeze response. Similarly, right, we have to first notice. So there's affect labeling. I'm noticing that I'm in the basement. I'm shut down. I'm triggered. Bill Urey gives an example. He's talking to Chavez, head of state, about something, and he says, "Well, what are you doing, Bill? This conflict is going off the rails, and it's not working." And so he's feeling very charged up. He's in the basement, and he has to get to the balcony. And so he does that by imagining himself above, looking down, right, and seeing him being yelled at from a distance. And that allows him to reset his limbic system a little bit. Now, my go-to strategy is to do that, but to also add in a few extra steps. So if I notice I'm being triggered, I'm fired up, I'm in the basement, okay, imagine I want to be on the balcony, I want to get up there. In order to do that, I often have to create a visual of a playful image. For me, it's Tigger from Winnie the Pooh. If I can think of Tigger and it flashes before my eye, I mean, he's bouncing around, he's having a good time, I'm not going to be that stressed out anymore. Okay. And if I can breathe out a little bit longer than I breathe in, that vagus breathing we did earlier, if you can breathe out even a little longer than you breathe in as you're doing this sort of mental gymnastic, of course, we have to stay in level 1 listening, right? So you can't totally get distracted by level 3 listening. So you have to not get distracted by all of this as you do it, right? But this is a way to self-coach through a very challenging, if you're under fire, I was working with the senior executive recently, a judge actually, and she really felt very threatened by me and my involvement. And so therefore I felt very threatened by her and her involvement. And, so you might need these kinds of situational practices. How can I breathe? How can I have a visual? The reason we're doing it that way is the amygdala is very powerful. It's about 300,000 times more powerful than the conscious brain. Right. The metaphor is the elephant and the rider. The rider of the elephant is the logical brain. The elephant is the emotional brain. And when the rider is in control, then no problem. But when the elephant is riled up or agitated, really there is no chance. So what we do is we create structure. We add visuals. We do the breathing, which resets the limbic system. Right. That imagination, the counting down with the other one that helps with that. And then some people will use essential oils. Sometimes you can sniff an essential oil, let it go, synergy blend or something like that. The olfactory nerve, it bypasses a lot of the prefrontal cortex. So it's much faster as well. So if you're dealing with the really tense sort of difficult situations, that can be helpful there. Ellen has a question about freezing. So yeah, just aside from so there's fight, flight, freeze, and there's different stages of freeze, and sometimes you can get yourself out of freeze just by breathing out longer than you breathe in, as I mentioned. But you may also have to just notice, what does freeze feel like in my body? How do I know? And by the way, it's a reciprocal loop. So sometimes say, if your knee locks up when you're in a freeze state, well, sometimes if your knee locks up just physically from physical use, it might also, right? And a common occurrence, I see this where people get stomach aches and they misinterpret that as anxiety, for instance, right? There's butterflies, but is it really butterflies or is it just the inflammation, that kind of thing? So with freeze, what I often see in conflicts, and this exacerbates conflict, is someone's freeze response usually sounds like an excuse, or it sounds like, oh, I don't know, I didn't know I was supposed to drive that so fast, or whatever it is, right? And it becomes this immediate knee-jerk reaction because they don't want to just feel frozen on the spot. So you may run into that in conflict, or you may run into someone asks a really tough question, do you trust me? And the person is just frozen. They can't respond to this question. And so then it becomes offensive, right? So in all of those cases, for instance, I might counsel or coach the party in advance. If you do have a very strong freeze response, what are some practices? Maybe you can go off video for a moment. If we're on a virtual mediation, maybe you can take a breath. Maybe you can give me a note that you're not feeling well. You can say, I'm sorry, I'm developing a headache. Can I just have a moment? Right? So building some rejoinders so that you can address that. And then the breathing, I would add that in as well. Ellen, is that helpful, or is there something in specific you wanted to talk about?
That helps, thanks.
Okay, very good. I find that the spray and pray method sometimes works with these questions. All right, any other questions or thoughts as we're here right now with the basement and the balcony? Have you ever done this before, maybe accidentally or purposefully? Have you been following these concepts?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
I'm very interested in this process, not only personally, but I'm a law professor trying to figure out how to help my law students. And there's virtually no coaching in law school. So all of these techniques are important. And I guess the question is, the third party perspective is part of what you're talking about. And so if you can elaborate a little more on how to get outside, and Bill views himself. I've heard Bill talk about this, of being on the balcony watching himself on the dance floor as his metaphor. And but it's a lot easier to say than to do. So I'm mentioning that simply because I'm thinking about this in a larger context of legal education. So
yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. I think the positive priming, like if you can build in a little bit of like the moment or two of being at rest and grounded first, it's hard to just jump into a visualization. Sometimes some light music can help as well, or asking people to be particularly playful. I sometimes will say, can you suspend disbelief for a little while? Can you put that saboteur, that assessor away, the one that wants to kind of doubt this process or question it? And then I ask people to engage in daily life with it. It just, as you're talking to a friend, can you go to the balcony in the middle of the conversation? And even if it's not a tense conversation, can you just go to the balcony and just see what it feels like? Is it any different? Are you still able to pay attention? Because the biggest challenge in the beginning is you will fall into level 1 listening. It'll become this like, I'm barely listening because I'm so in my head. I'm trying to think about this balcony and this breathing and this and that. So it does take a few tries to get there. What else would persuade your students? I mean, the evidence base, I think, is anecdotally is there. I've worked with lots of people who have used this in tough situations like Darfur or in places like that and have found it to be effective, right? I worked with ambassadors and heads of government agencies who said that they've used it and it's helped.
No, you're a credible witness. I'm just trying to think about but I'm hearing you say, try it in the shallow end of the pool.
Yeah.
That's not a conflict necessarily, just to sort of get warmed up.
Exactly, because they might feel Another thing too, oftentimes people are worried if I get stuck in the balcony, then I'm not able to respond to what the person is saying if they're being tense. Then I also tie it with the reflective listening. Is like, can you first get real savvy with reflecting back a little bit of what you've heard? Because that's going to buy your subconscious brain a couple of seconds. And that's all the time it really needs. It's pretty good at processing information. So if you can learn to trust yourself a little more, then it's a little easier to get to the balcony because you know, even if you're there, you're not just going to be staring at that person for a while, right? Yeah. I would also maybe imagine just putting a little reminder near my desk of a picture of a balcony or somebody on a balcony or something like that. That might help. Just remind me to try it out a little more. Yeah, thank you for those questions. Yes, Tara, so that actually is from Creative Visualization from Shakti Gawain. And so a lot of, my book was a curation. I went around and sort of picked the best stuff that I loved, and then I went and found the people who actually built it to interview them and learn. And so, yep, Shakti's work is really good if you're interested in more creative visualization. She's the person to go to. And if you ever want more of a bibliography too, I've got, I think I cited about 100 sources in the book, so I've got a lot of research. All right, so we're moving on here then, and I invite you to play with going from the basement to the balcony. I think it might be a helpful tool to try out every now and then. So now I'm going to invite you to think about 3 instruments. We're going to talk about the journal and the mirror and the voice recorder, and we're going to see how they can be helpful in context. Okay, so this again it starts with you. How can you coach yourself? But also, how can you help your clients coach themselves as well as they go through life, right? Because that's going to be extremely important. So I'll start with the top one here, Pennebaker. It's one of the more complicated ones here, probably the most complicated. The Pennebaker protocol came out of Texas. There's a professor there who's a psychologist, and he learned that when people have trauma or difficult circumstances, if they never express them, they tend to later on downstream have very bad physical implications. Strokes, heart issues, adrenal malfunction, as opposed to people who are able to express them even in confidence. A confidential expression of, say, a rape or something like that is going to allow for better healing, right? So Pennebaker protocol is a writing protocol. It takes 3 days if you want to do it. It takes 10 to 15 minutes every day. And all you do is you write about something deeply emotional and personal and painful. So it's like self-therapy in a way. And I use this a lot at the UN during the pandemic when people started to lose loved ones. I was training coaches all over and they didn't know how to process their own grief, right? And this is one way to do it. I also use this just anecdotally to change some bad behaviors. Growing up, I had some bad habits around eating. And so I was able to address that through Pennebaker. So the idea is to take for 3 days and to write down for 10 minutes each day, usually at the same time if you can, what is deeply painful to you, something deeply emotional to you, and to focus on that. What does it mean about that experience? What does it mean that it was so emotional to you? What does it mean about your family and your history and your experience and your life? And what does it say about you as a person? And so there's some deeper reflection there, and you kind of write for 10 minutes straight. And you'll notice most people either have a huge impact the first day or the last day, right? So that middle day is usually a wash, at least from his research. And he's got a book called Writing to Heal. And I mean, there's 3 or 4 books on this now, lots of research on this. This is, again, the stuff I give you, disproportionate benefit, lots of research, easy to do, substantial benefit. Those are my key factors as I pull stuff out. Okay, so Pennebaker, roughly 30 minutes, and I would build in time after, so 10 minutes a day for 3 days, 30 minutes. I would build in probably an hour or 2 afterwards. You're pretty wiped out the first time you do it, right? Or second time. And the goal is to keep going back to the same prompt and doing it again and seeing how your narrative will eventually change, because it most likely will as you go through it. Okay. So that's one, if somebody's dealing with particular difficulty, can be very good, again, with parties, if you're in conflict, or with students, or, as they're learning to deal with particular emotions. It's not something people are generally writing about, the targeted journaling around their painful situations like that. Okay. Morning pages and evening pages, very easy technique. If you wake up in the morning with a monkey mind, you've got a lot of things to do, you're running around every day, thoughts are different in the morning. If you feel anxious in the morning pages is, is going to help you. It's windshield wipers for the mind, I think Julia Cameron called it. And it's, you wake up and you just write down everything you're thinking for 2 minutes without stopping, whatever comes out, right? And then just let it go. You can read it again or let it go. For some people who have trouble sleeping at night, evening pages can be more effective. It just depends on when you have an active sort of mindset there. But you may just 2 minutes before you sleep, just dump it out. Some people will use a voice recorder. I'll get into that. That can be helpful too. But just get it out of your system so your short-term memory while you're sleeping is not processing it for no reason. Right. That's why when you write things down, you move it to the hippocampus of the brain, and so then you'll just release that space for other processing. Okay. And then gratitude journaling is the single most effective intervention that's come out of the field of positive psychology in the last 50 years. They did all this research and they found this is the most effective intervention. And all it is writing down 3 good things that happened today and what had to happen for each of those to occur. So we're going to try this right now just for fun. I figure a little application can be good. I'll invite you to do this, and it just takes about 3 minutes. Let me type this in here. 3 good things that happened today, and what had to happen for each of them to occur. And if you feel like sharing, go ahead and put it in the chat. And you'll notice that the thing that happened might be joy-inducing, but what had to happen for that to occur is much more exciting. I mean, I'm excited to be here with you all. This is a great community. I've been part of your community for years and years. I love Maria and everybody that does this great work, and so grateful to be here. And what had to happen? I mean, I had to be committed for a while. You had to believe in the material. I had to kind of go get some degrees and get some jobs and have a lot of support from family and friends and whatnot. So that second part, the latter part, is just so worthwhile, right? What had to happen for this to occur? So go ahead and take a moment now. I shall give you 2. And I'd love for you to write this out. Writing it out is going to be much more powerful than just thinking it. The research has shown that. And then if you want to put it in the chat, go for it. Anybody want to share something good that happened to you today and what had to happen for it to occur? It's too early in the morning, huh? Nothing good's happened yet. Oh, blast booster, yes. That's a mixed feelings on that one, but I'm glad you have it. I hope the symptoms are not too bad. I learned Zoom to connect to everybody. Now I'm grateful. Yeah, nice. Children are having a baby. Oh, children are having a baby and that's required. Yeah, what had to happen for that to occur? That's good. Yesterday can count, Richard, sure. I woke up this morning, the sun is shining, a lot to be thankful for. Had a friend call on the way to work. Yeah. I didn't overreact to texts. Okay, I like it. Sometimes, yep, the negative is also positive. I met some new people. Diwali dancing. Okay, nice. I like that. A 4-mile run in the park. That sounds lovely. Yeah, there you go. I woke up and, the reason for that is Allah told me to keep that pump in the brain and the heart pumping. All right. Love it. Very nice. Yeah. So, and just noticing, right? Noticing how you feel about it. Again, everything is all guess and check. Was this worth the squeeze? Did it do something for me? And if it did, then what's stopping me from doing a little more of it? That's the question. Great. Thank you for that. So that's the journal. And there are, of course, a lot of other ways to use the journal, but these are 3 of the ways that I found that I thought would be helpful to share with you all in context. Okay. Another tool to use, and I think it's really overlooked, is the mirror, right? There's some wonderful research out of Barnard now. Tara Well is the professor out there, and she's researching on mirror meditation. The power of mirror meditation to help us heal. It improves our self-compassion, our sense of confidence. It allows us to process certain narratives. In our case, it helps us rehearse difficult conversations. It helps people think through apologies, right? It helps to reduce the brain, like the active brain chemistry. That's the best part, right? With mirror neurons, and now the research is so clear on this that I'm reading your face, and the way I do it is because on my face the neurons are shifting, right? There's a mirroring occurring. So at a micro level, my face is contorting to meet yours. So if you or I have Botox, then that is going to interfere in our ability to read each other. And I found this the hard way when I was playing poker recently. So, you have to be very mindful of what these neurons are about. And so if I'm a senior leader and I have to deliver bad news of layoffs, or if I have information I can't share yet, or if I don't really believe in this thing, but I want to still apologize out of good faith, right? All of these things can have implications if I've not practiced in front of a mirror, if I've not really managed that, because the other person might be very adept at reading my face because of the mirror neurons. And then as a result, I'm outed. That insincerity will be obvious. And what I say will be kind of tarnished. And then, so that's kind of when I'm working with parties that have difficult messages to deliver, the mirror practice can be very helpful. Also, when you're prepping for interviews and things like that, it can be very helpful. And then asking yourself tough questions, right? When you are in front of that mirror, Steve Jobs, up until the day before he died, he asked himself every day, is this what I really want to be doing today? And his answer, if it was ever no for more than 6 months, he left whatever it is, what he was doing, or he dropped the project, or he quit the job, or whatever it was. My question to myself every morning is, do I love the guy in the mirror today? Have I done things that would ensure that I love the guy in the mirror today? Am I doing my best to love the guy in the mirror today? And there's different questions. You can kind of frame them how you want, right? Some of them are values questions. Some of them are self-compassion questions. Just depends on what you need there. Thoughts about the mirror? Anybody used the mirror before in your practice, or any other thoughts about it? Anything based on what I've said? Would you try it for something?
Can I ask you about that? Are you
Yeah.
saying actually put a mirror up and look at your face and have the conversation with yourself, or do it? What is the? I've often wondered about the Zoom image that you get when you're seeing yourself on a Zoom screen. I'm not sure that qualifies.
Yeah, I don't think it does, actually. I think some research shows that creates actually more of a stress response when you see yourself on Zoom. Yeah, I would say in front of a mirror itself, and to watch yourself. And then sometimes, you might set up a tripod and record if you want, just to see what it looks like as well. But really just catching how it looks when you're looking at yourself, and what are the emotions that are coming from the narrative. There's a book called Mirror Work, where it challenges you to, every time you walk by a mirror, to stop and say, I love you. You're great. Thank you. Thank you for everything you've done. right? And you'd be surprised how many people would be very mortified at the prospect of doing this. But it does it provides some benefit, some biochemical benefit that look, you gain confidence, there's more oxytocin, you have more empathy for yourself. There's more dopamine, less cortisol. So all of this is kind of in the research now. The Zoom image is different than the mirror. I don't think the mirror neurons can pick up through the Zoom the same way. And you can see this in another way. If you ever try to sing happy birthday on Zoom, it's off tune. You cannot keep it. For some reason, when we're in person together, some of the harmonization that occurs, it just gets lost in the Zoom. So that's been what I've been running into. There was a question about why is Zoom different?
I like the mirror philosophy. I read the Steve Jobs autobiography, and I think it's fascinating of his life. He always look himself in the mirror and find out what is the best. And I always use this philosophy of the using the mirror. Whenever I lose my confidence, I look myself in mirror and ask myself, whatever I'm doing it, all the value system, I have it, I applied in my life. And I think it's self-talking is always help you. And I Steve Jobs, I read his autobiography, and I don't know, he in a short time, he did a marvelous job to the humanity. And I appreciated what he went through all his life, and he accomplished what he wanted to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a helpful framework just to check with yourself to see how you're doing. Are you living up to your own standards? Is what do you look happy? Because if you don't look too happy in the mirror, then that might be a sign as well. Richard's asking about Zoom and your personal likeness. There has been a movement of people removing their own image from the self view from the screen. And if you notice that helps you, great. Some people also just look right at the camera. I'm bad at this still. So my eyes might be drifting a little bit as I talk to you. But some people have gotten very good at that. Sort of focusing on others and not, because we do, if you notice, we are constantly looking at our own selves on Zoom. And so that can actually spike your heart rate and blood pressure and things, unfortunately. And again, it just depends on what you think of yourself in that moment and how you're seeing. And is that creating, a sense of concern for you? So the mirror is something that most people in my work, they have not done much with, and yet I see a lot of value with it. And thank you, Chloe, for putting the mirror work in here. Tara Well is a colleague of mine. I think very highly of her research. That's her new book on mirror meditation. She also has a 7-day or 10-day free mirror meditation challenge on her website if you want to just try it out and see what she thinks. It's great for students. A lot of good stories about students and how it helped them. Okay, so the next one up is the voice recorder. And again, it's another one that's a little overlooked. And you may notice now with the voice recorder, the mirror, and the journal, you actually can get away by using your phone for all of these things if you ever needed to, if you're in a pinch. Although in my research, I did find that people who use their phone for all of them, where it wasn't as effective, it was a little bit less organized for them, things like that. So the voice recorder is good if you're on the go, if there's a lot of emotion. In our space, sometimes you've just finished a mediation or something and there's a lot of stuff swirling in your head. I had one yesterday that was going well for 3 hours, became a bit of a meltdown at the very end, and everybody was tired, and broke them up into caucus and kind of brought them back together, and just tried to salvage the 3 hours we had spent, and then walked away. And then I really needed to debrief it. Sometimes you have a reflective practitioner group, you've got colleagues you can just call right on the go and talk about it, and sometimes you just got to throw it into the voice recorder and kind of process it a little bit, because thinking of that scarcity mindset again, oh gosh, this mediation didn't go well, what are we going to do? But of course, I talk to the parties continuously. We're going to have another mediation. There's a chance to recover. How many mediations actually work out perfectly fine, even though they had a little bit of a meltdown on the day of, right? So that's that. All right, let's get back into this, the growth mindset or the abundance mindset. And this is possible, right? So the voice recorder can help you process some of that. Also very good if you're thinking about confidence levels, if there's a party with a power dynamic, if there's somebody going into an interview, you know, just any kind of conversation that might be difficult. How confident are you in your ask, if it's a negotiation, that kind of thing. So to capture it on voice and then to hear it and then to keep working on that to change the tone a little bit. Really good for emotion when there are highs and lows, right? Particularly highs. When you write them out or type them out, you're not going to find that you can capture the emotion nearly as well. So it might be good to have a combination there. And then I use it for learnings as well. So I'll journal about learnings, and then every month or quarter I'll read through all the journal snippets and I'll compile them into a coherent kind of audio reminder to myself. So, you know, just the idea for folks if you want to process. I know you have a lot of information coming through. If you're like me, you see a lot of clients, visitors, and, you know, working with lots of students and names and things like that. So it's easy to lose track of the details sometimes. And this is one way to keep that, you know, being mindful of disclosure requirements and things. Yes.
Do you mind just saying a bit about technology? I'm embarrassed to say I have a phone and I can take pictures and send email and
Yeah.
occasionally chat with my kids. But I honestly don't even know how to use this as a decent recorder. And then what do you do with the recordings after you got them? What happens?
Yeah, absolutely. So some phones will be built in with a feature called voice memo. If you search for it, it may just pop up. If not, you may have to download an app of some kind of voice memo or dictation software app. I like this one, otter.ai, OTTER.ai in particular, because when I was writing my book, I was able to transcribe all the interviews, and at least for my voice, it picked it up almost perfectly. So there's very little editing that was required. It also creates it all in and that's on your phone or on desktop, but then it can catalog it and you can word search it later and that kind of thing. So that can be helpful. But yeah, just on the phone, a voice memo, or if you want to, you know, the old school with the picture here, just the voice recorder, right? You can get one of these and keep the high 8 tape, or nowadays they flip it up to MP3, put it on the cloud if you want.
But do you transcribe it, or I mean, literally, what do you do with it after you've done it? Is it like journaling? Just the fact that you've done it is enough, or do you use it after the fact? That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes, right, sure. So I will oftentimes come back around and listen to particular ones. If say I had a huge win and I'm having a bad day, then I might go back and listen to the huge win again, just to remind myself that right. So that's a value there. But yeah, with Otter.ai and other life logging software, you can start putting them in folders and cataloging it. And then you're able to say you want to write a book later, right? And I imagine you would, and maybe you have already. And so this is a way to kind of collect some of those thoughts, those vignettes, because a lot of books are based on stories. So this is a story that might become a chapter. Let me just save it that way, and then I can reference it later. But yes, the otter.ai will transcribe it automatically for you as you're doing it. And then that's the benefit. Then you can just search that as well. Yeah, I like this. I think it's a hack. I mean, honestly, I can't tell you how many times I've used it in the last couple of years to build courses, to write chapters, to help clients when they feel very stuck. One person was, you know, looking for custody rights, and there's a divorce case, and just could not write the paperwork for this thing. But it took us 30 minutes with Otter, and he had half the document done already, right? So sometimes if we're feeling stuck on the writing, we might shift to transcription. I'd love to hear people's thoughts on this. Have you used the voice recorder for yourself to collect information or to maybe brainstorm before a matter, or anything at all for emotion capture, ideas? I would say one person I was working with was head of a refugee camp, so she could never stop and take notes. So she was always on the go. And so that was an impetus for thinking about this some more. It's like, oh, there are really moments when we don't have time to write down everything. Maybe you're in the car and you're driving to the next thing. Yeah. So just an idea, something to think about if you want. Another way to communicate with yourself. Not all of us are, you know, some of us are auditory learners. And so when we articulate it that way, it allows us to process it. And it's a non-judgmental way of doing it. And you can get into the self-coaching as well. How did I feel about that? You know, and you can validate your own emotion. You can kind of think through it. So there's some options there. I use it a lot for learning specifically, just because that's what works for me. And then for just the emotion capture when I get big wins, because I'm always, you know, in my mind, I love having those wins. It's fun to have them. Okay, so that's that. Another big area that came up in my work was about accountability. How do we create accountability for people? How do we help people stick to goals when they've established them? Maybe you've got your own goals. Maybe your parties have goals. Maybe they're reneging on their goals, right? There's all kinds of dynamics around here. So how do you stick to goals? You know, there's a couple of different ways. In your own context, say you want to have a goal. I want to be a better listener or a better questioner, something like that. You might create some accountability for yourself. And, you know, whether it's partnering with somebody else, maybe you have a friend or colleague you can partner with. I use this concept of daily questions. So every night at 9 o'clock, a personal assistant will call me for about 3 minutes, college student, and he will ask me 20 questions of my choosing. And this is based on Ben Franklin's Daily Virtues, which was then modified by Marshall Goldsmith. He's a pretty famous coach on daily questions. And the reason I ask myself these questions, like, did I do my best to start my day with love in my heart? Did I do my best to connect with my, you know, the 5 people that matter most to me, my big 5, my grandparents and things? Did I do 2 push-ups? Because if I do 2 push-ups, I'll probably do 20. Right? But if I say, did I do 20? I probably won't do any, right? So you build structure, and that allows you to have that accountability. Now, some of us, you're not going to need this structure. You're so good. You're an upholder. You write it down, you get it done. That's how you are. That's a very small percentage of people. Then there's a small percentage of people that are rebels. I could write it down. You could tell me what to do. I could build the structure. I'm still going to have trouble getting it done. I'm a rebel. You can't tell me what to do because I can't tell myself what to do. So I've got to build a lot of structure to get my stuff done. Okay. There's also obligers, people who will get it done if they owe it to somebody else. Create false deadlines, build running clubs, do all that stuff. Right. And then there's questioners. You tell me why, you help me understand why. Not just tell me, but help me understand why. Once I know why, I'll get it done. But until that, I'm going to keep asking questions. Right. So these are different styles we have to pay attention to when we think about accountability. This is Gretchen Rubin's 4 tendencies, by the way, and you can take her small assessment online if you want to learn if what I said was not obvious enough to you as to which one you are. She's got a great book and a great assessment online for that too. Good for students as well. And you know, with daily questions, you might start by first asking yourself a couple of questions. How did I do on engagement today? Did I try my best to, you know, to do this, to do that, whatever it is? Most people will fail at that within 14 days. They won't be able to keep asking themselves those questions. And so at that point, you know, you have to pivot. Maybe you'll pick an app, like there's a daily questions app. Maybe you'll go to the gig economy. Maybe you'll find a friend. You know, it really depends on what you want to do with it. I've been using Philip, my personal assistant, for 2 years now. And when I asked Marshall Goldsmith, my mentor, how much money he spent on his personal assistant after using him for 40 years, he said, Vic, that's a really bad question because it doesn't matter how much money it was pretty insignificant. The bigger question is how much time did I spend working on these goals? And that is substantial because as you build in the questions, you don't want to fail at your own test. So you start to get really, really good at getting those things done. And then that just improves your life, right? So finding ways to have accountability, maybe external accountability, can be very helpful. All right. Burning the boats is this idea of nested penalties. And maybe you know about the provenance of this, but there was a, you know, back in the day, there was a war and the army showed up and came on boat. And the first thing they said was burn all the boats. We're not leaving. You know, either we win or we die. Right. And so they won, right, in that case. And it's a good reminder that sometimes when we are on the fence, we're not going to get a whole lot done. Sometimes we have to make those commitments, and we might have to create some nested penalties. And nested penalties, I mentioned at the very beginning. If I want to get this project done today, if I don't get it done today, I got to run a mile tonight. But if I don't run a mile tonight, I got to run a mile every night for the next week. If I don't run a mile every night for the next week, I got to donate $1,000 to a political campaign I don't like. So I'm not paying that $1,000. I'm not getting on that robocall list. I do not want to deal with that. So I don't want to run the 5 miles either. So the odds are I'm going to get that work done. And it creates this mental process, this sequencing loop, because your brain will recoil literally at what you've created at this structure. They're like, there's no way I'm paying the money. There's no way I'm running the miles. So, stop surfing the web. Let's get back to work. And, I'm being facetious with that one, but it does work. And you may come up with better ones for yourself. But the idea is to make the penalties much, much worse, exponentially worse as you go, so that you don't really ever want to see that last one. So that's one way to stick to goals. And then including people in your lives, right? The mastermind around you. I talk to parties about this all the time too when I'm working with mediation parties. Like, who's going to help you stay accountable? Because there will be a backslide. There'll be a moment when you made a commitment and something happens, there's a triggering that happens. Maybe we cross a boundary or whatever it is. There may be a moment where there has to be a check. So who are the people in your life that can help you process it, move forward, and that kind of thing? And then the kitchen sink approach just merely means sometimes with behavior change, with habits, with this kind of big shifts, we have to really throw a lot of different tools at it. And I'll just give you a really personal example of me quitting smoking cigarettes about 8 years ago now. I had smoked for 10 years. And I had to use hypnosis. I had to use a journal. I had to use a quit line. I had a coach. I had 3 different apps on my phone. The amount of structure that was required to finally do it was just incredible. Looking back at it, so you sometimes have to just throw the kitchen sink at the problem because you probably just have not done enough for long enough to actually make the behavior change, right? And it's worth it. And then knowing when to quit. In some examples, not in my example, but in some examples, you might want to give up on the goal. And in that case, you just knowing when, quitting early and often is very important. Seth Godin wrote a wonderful book called The Dip, which talks about when to quit. Because, nowadays, especially, I'm a millennial coach. I work with lots of younger generations, high potential leaders. And sometimes they dig in, gosh, I'm in debt and I'm raising more money and I'm going to make this company get off the ground, but all right, well, at what point do you decide that you're just swimming in the wrong direction here? You're swimming upstream. Can you just turn around and swim the other way? Right. So we want to think about when is it appropriate to also quit on certain things. Okay, so I have one more slide, one more activity, and then open for questions. I know we've got a little bit of time here left. This one's about unconscious bias. How many of you think you're biased? Please give me a sign of some kind. How many of you think you're biased? So Joan Sternlight, if you know her, the name, she does a lot of work on neuroscience and conflict management. The only time I've ever seen everybody raise their hand, there was an advanced mediation institute in Texas or something, and she was speaking, and she said, how many of you think you're biased? 300 people, mediators, raised their hands. Now, mind you, we're not supposed to be biased, we're mediators, right? But the research shows that those who did not raise their hands are more biased than those who did. Right. There's an illusion of objectivity that we live in. And so we start from that point of departure that we are all biased, and let's hope that our biases are not doing too much harm, too much damage in the mix here, right? So let's start with this activity. I think you'll enjoy this. So this is called Who Are Your People? Who are your people? And I'm going to ask you to take a couple of minutes and think of who your people are. And it's intentionally extremely vague. Okay. So I might say my people are Taco Bell lovers. They were jumping up and down when that Mexican pizza came back. My people love to watch Sunday football. My people are do-gooders, cause lovers, and they will put it all out there if they have to. Okay. So you can talk about beliefs, you can talk about interests and hobbies, you can talk about sports and food and whatever you want. But what I want at the end is I want you to type in my people are X, my people are Y, my people are Z. Or you can come off and tell us what it is. But I'd love to just get a lot of chatter in the chat here for this. Who are your people? My people are, and you can just use ellipses if that's helpful. My people are. So you can just do it like that, if that helps. take a moment or two, take your time, and we'll come right back. All right. We're getting a lot of good stuff here. People are interested in helping less fortunate, social impact focused. People are those I see and will also see me. All right, Margo, I like it. Those who work hard and are helpful. Some really profound ones here. I like it. Christians, educators, therapists, anybody who likes me, those who don't, and those who are undecided. Creative do-gooders who like to dance, book lovers. Yeah, great. Good. So you have a sense of who your people are. Kind, thoughtful, loving. They love music and books and adventures. They like showing up for important causes. They make the invisible visible. Kind, loving, and curious. Yeah. Good. It's good to notice our people, right? It's good to kind of bask in that and to feel that affirmingness of the people that are our people. Now, there is one cautionary tale in all of this, right? And that is that the research will show that if you're in my in-group, we're the same people, right? Your people are my people. If we're in the same in-group and you get poked by a pencil, my brain will light up as if I'm in pain. I will notice that pain. But if you're in my out group, if you're not one of my people, then if you get poked by a pencil, my brain will not light up as if it's in pain. It won't light up as if it's in pleasure, but it won't light up as if it's in pain. Now, what does that mean for us? It means that as we work really hard to create our people in the world, to find out who's like us, to find out who we care for and connect with, we're inherently letting our brain create an outgroup as well. And that outgroup, we're not going to necessarily feel their pain as much anymore. So what is the solution to that? The solution, I think, is micro affirmations. Mary Rowe, if you know Mary Rowe, she was the ombuds at MIT. She's now, I think, a professor emeritus, living the good life out there. And she was doing a lot of research on micro inequities, micro affirmation. She's written a couple articles on micro affirmation. She's a wonderful person to talk to about this if you ever want to. But the idea is if we start by saying, look, all of us are my people. We're all good people. We're all deserving of a good day today. And, the Search Inside Yourself Institute that came out of Google takes this one step farther. They'll say, you know what? Vic wants to have a good meeting just like Ellen and Sudha and Maria and everybody on my screen here. And, all these people, they all want to have a good day too. Right. And Vic wants to feel productive and successful, just like all the other colleagues on the call. Right. And so as you do that, as you think about it, we're all in it together, we're all equal, we're all deserving of a good time, of a good life, of a purpose-driven career. We're all worthy of our voices. If you can start from that place, and then you start to see that all people are my people, then it's easier, to protect against those micro inequities, those death by a million paper cuts that one might be dealing. And by the way, this is one of the biggest reasons, biggest, at least in my world, triggers for conflict is this aspect of bias or perception of bias and how it shows up and how people feel like insiders or outsiders, included and excluded, and that kind of thing. So something we're always working on. My people are drummers, Teresa says. I like that. It's fun. So just remembering that we have our people and we should honor those people. And then we should also just remember, like, how do we create that generosity? Well, we have this on the listserv, et cetera, right? Everybody comes from different places, different views, but how do we really ensure that we're all kind of these people together? All right. Please get in touch at extram.com. My company is about extraordinary millennials. I focus on young leaders, high achievers, so Forbes 30 under 30, Rhodes Scholars, and lots of folks who are trying to break into career and the next level here. So if you have some people in your life, be happy to help them. And yes, Professor.
Sorry, I just, this is really quite helpful. I'm thinking about my students, and law school is notorious for sort of taking people's intrinsic motivation and turning them into extrinsic motivation, because we worry about grades and curves and, job placements and all of that. And I guess what I'm trying to figure out, I teach a couple of pass-fail courses, and deliberately, because I don't want to have the students competing against each other, but I'm also concerned about the level of motivation compared to other courses. And that's just a modest thing, but I guess other people may have similar questions about how do you reach the or help get back to intrinsic motivation rather than extrinsic.
Yeah. So I mean, there's the research on intrinsic motivation, motivation, Drive, right? Drive talks a lot about this, and thinking about, what brought you here to begin with. Maybe going back to values. Is it achievement? Is it a sense of learning, wisdom? Is it connection? And it may be worth having a conversation. I don't know how big your classes are, sir, by the way, but if they're not too large, then maybe having that conversation and seeing, is there an inherent conflict of values here somewhere? I was recently dealing with a dynamic. We've got in a really advanced business school setting, there's a free rider in the mix. And in all the group settings, he's not doing any work, and everyone's really frustrated about this, right? So what brought him here? Well, he came in thinking, I'm going to do the least amount of work and I'm going to walk away with this degree. That was his motivation for coming. So that's an inherent conflict for everybody else, unless we discuss it and figure out what to do with it, right? So it may be that their motivation is to slide by and to take advantage of your kindness.
Well, it's a fair point, and maybe that's, there are people that have that, and I just have to recognize it and award them whatever.
Yeah, we do know that fear motivation doesn't work, right? It just doesn't work. It works for maybe up to the age of 2 or 3 or something like that. So then now we're at what is that? Achievement motivation, or the purpose, or nowadays it's really the younger generation. It's about show me how this is going to make a difference down the road. And luckily our work is pretty translatable.
Thank you. And you're available for an email question later, is that?
Yeah, it's absolutely anytime.
Thank you.
Yeah. Other thoughts, questions? Was this helpful? Good use of your time? A little bit of a thumbs up. Some people unsure. Very good. No, it's always a pleasure to connect with all of you. You're doing such great work, and such great minds in this area. Any final questions for us here? Oh, if you're open to it, I wanted to end with a loving kindness meditation. I thought maybe that'd be a good use of how we close up. How do you feel about that all? Do you want to stick around and do something like that? Okay. So I'm going to go off video just so I can be fully present here for you. If you want to plant your feet, kind of close your eyes or soft gaze. This is usually a meditation that helps to promote more compassion, self-compassion, helps with compassion fatigue resilience. So we're just going to do the same thing we did in the beginning. Take a breath in through our nose. That's how we always start these things. Breath in, breath out, just noticing the breath in and out of our nose. And I want you to imagine you're holding something, either it's a ball of light, or it's fire, or it's, a candle or some kind, or just something of worth, of value, some strength, energy. And I want you to just, with that flame or that warmth, whatever it is, I want you to wish for yourself that you be happy, that you be healthy, that you be at peace, and that you live with ease. And maybe you can take this warmth, this energy, this light, and you can think of it as the learning from today, as the growth you've had in your day so far, whether from this or from just your day, your gratitude from the day. And now we're going to share this with somebody else on the call, somebody who maybe maybe needs a little help. Maybe they're a little down, could use a boost. Let's share with them without losing any of it ourselves, right? This is just an amplification process. We're giving more. May they be happy. May they be healthy. May they be at peace. May they live with ease. And let's think of everybody on this call. Let's share that warmth, that light, that energy, that substance, that gift. Let's share with all of us here. May we all be happy. May we all be healthy. May we be at peace. May we live with ease. And let's get real generous. Let's move this beyond. Let's look at, neighboring states and folks of sports teams we disagree with, and, people who mean to us. And, let's just be generous with all of these folks, right? Everyone deserves to be happy and healthy. May they be at peace and may they live with ease. And as we go farther, North America and globally, and all beings, may all beings be happy. May they be healthy. May they be at peace, and may they live with ease. And that's it. Whenever you're ready, if you want to just kind of loosen that up, come right back. Oftentimes there's a little bit of joy that comes from that. That's a mindfulness practice that you can't really use unless you've got something to give, a little bit to give. And, oftentimes at the end of a retreat or a workshop or the end of a year in a school year or something like that, end of a mediation, you might be able to pull it off in the right context. Of course, you have to kind of choose. I thought it'd be good for all of you to have it. Again, it allows us, it's an adaptogen, so it allows us to have more compassion when we're losing it for somebody, and it helps us with our compassion fatigue resilience in general. So it'll create compassion when there isn't some. It'll also help you bounce back if you've just given a little too much on something. The key is to really first serve yourself, right? That's what self-coaching is all about. Find those things that are going to help you feel better in the moment. And imagine my surprise. I learned this at a meditation retreat. Then I learned the research around it. I went to Puerto Rico after the storms. I taught the governor's office and everybody else. And I was teaching emergency managers about love and kindness meditation. And it seemed to make a difference out there. So you never know where this is going to pay off, any of this stuff. And so I invite you to experiment with it, to pick up some new stuff. Share with me if you learned something cool, or if you want to, tell me about your stories. I always like to hear how things are going. And I want to thank you again for your time, and back over to Maria and everyone.
Vic, I can't thank you enough for this amazing morning. This has been absolutely terrific. I think you can tell from all the messages in the chat how much everyone has truly appreciated this. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being with us here today and being part of this wonderful dispute resolution community. To everyone, I'm going to turn off the recording. And